Tony Stark is many different things to many different people. A hero, an inventor, former warmonger, a work in progress. Some of his titles are more flattering than others. Mostly people know him as the invincible Iron Man. He's a character who tries his best to help people, although he makes quite a few mistakes. Credit that to his intellect mixed with his neuroses. It's that he pushes himself to fix his mistakes and create a better future that makes Tony a hero. Welcome to Chaos Ensues. Let's talk about some comics. While doing these Iron Man essays, I ran into a miniseries from 2023 called I Am Iron Man by Nigerian writer-artist duo Murewa Ayodele and Dotun Akande. Ayodele and Akande, who have a background in independent comics, tell 5 stories from different decades of Tony's history. The future, the Archie Goodwin Silver Age era, the 90s with War Machine and Chen's Iron Man armor, the Civil War era, ending with the modern era.
We started with digital comics, but we hosted it on our website. But at some point we did dabble in webtoons. The app, I think that comic was My Grandfather Was a God, and that was the comic that Tom Brevoort, the Marvel Comics editor, read, and was like, "Oh, you guys should come and work with us at Marvel Comics."
What works about this series is how it celebrates Iron Man's history while telling new stories. It doesn't summarize the past, but gives readers a flavor of each decade, inviting them to check out previous stories on their own.
It's a little bit of, us hustling, the Nigerian hustle, and also a little bit of luck. So I think we finished working on Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood. And I think even before we worked on Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood, Tom Brevoort asked us, who are our favorite, characters that we like to work on. We mentioned Shuri, we mentioned Storm, Phyla-Vell, Sif. We mentioned Sif. We mentioned a couple. I think they were mostly female characters, but we said the number one character, that I would really love to work on was Iron Man. And I was like, okay, noted, and nothing came of it. He said, what about Moon Knight? You like me? I'm like, yeah, okay, we like Moon Knight too. So we did the Moon Knight story. So when we're done with the Moon Knight story, so Dr. and I were talking, like, should we send him the pitch we've, always had stored, for years? So let's shoot the shot. So we took the pitch, we spruced it up a little, and it was originally supposed to be titled The Untold Tales of Iron Man. So we sent the pitch, and some people were like, oh, he loves the idea, it makes a lot of sense. But first things first,
we need to change it.
We need to change the title. Anything with Untold Tales, doesn't sell for some reason. So like, okay. That's fine, but in our pitch, we said in every issue, Iron Man is going to give his iconic, MCU line of "I am Iron Man," and it's like, yeah, you have your title right there. Just make that your title. So like, okay, cool. And he said his 60th anniversary is coming up soon. That we could make this, the 60th anniversary comic book. So we're like super excited.
The first issue has Tony facing off against an Iron Man fan/hater from the future named Tammy. A dose of that parasocial weirdness. The line between fan and hater is very thin. Tammy goes back in time to face Tony at his peak. After fighting Tammy in different time periods, Tony has to make a life-altering decision. Prevent New York from vanishing forever, or bringing back his parents. Moments like this hit on the kind of character Tony is, putting his self-interest aside to help others. Ayodele and Akande have tons of moments like this throughout their story. This series also features appearances by Tony's greatest enemies. Self-blame, self-sacrifice, with a little bit of self-loathing.
If you're asking about the tool also, I use a graphic monitor, a Cintiq. By the time I think I was using something else, but still digital coloring. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes though, I would, but I don't do this anymore. I could color traditionally just to get a feel of what I'm going for, like the mood and the tone. then I take a picture and then bring it to my computer and work on it there. I don't do that anymore because it takes a lot of time sometimes. Thing is, I started out writing. I'd always known how to draw. Every school I went to, I was the artist, but I started out writing. So I think the storytelling / writing muscle had always been worked. And if I'm going to collaborate with another writer, I would rather you give me a lot of what's in your mind. I know a lot of artists don't like, they just want it to be free reign and all that. I respect that, I understand that. But for me, I need to get a sense of your direction, where you're headed. It doesn't have to be like 100%, but I need a chunk of that, like 75% at least, of what's in your head. I can give you that and more. If you don't give me enough, I think I will be tempted to tell the story, and I don't want to do that. I want to respect the writer because I'm a writer too, and I want your vision to be on the pages as much as possible. I want to add, not take away from what you have, even though you might like what you see, but I want you to see what you have in your head and more. So I don't want to tempt myself with working with little, like, you know what, just freestyle this page. I would, and I'll have fun. I'll have a lot of fun, but then I'll feel like I'm taking over the story, and I don't want to feel that. I don't want you to feel that either. So yeah, I'd rather you give me something to work with.
What I appreciate about Ayodele and Akande's styles is how versatile they are, which works because Iron Man is too. Each issue feels fresh as they take place in different settings, covering different genres and tones. Issue 2 takes place during the Silver Age with a more lighthearted tone, showing Tony underwater teaming up with a giant talking fish looking for a piece of radioactive space rock.
I see you're a man of culture as well. You're glowing.
It's my thermocouple factor on overdrive.
Huh?
My armor is trying desperately to pull heat from the water to keep me alive and ready.
Hold that thought. Hey, Fred.
Flee.
Hey, Freds.
Flee, 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 flee.
That's weird.
Are we lost?
No, not that. Freds have very simple thoughts. They think only in the 5 Fs.
Mm-hmm.
Flee, fight, frolic, feed, and
I think I get the idea.
But all the Freds I've met in this part of the ocean seem to be stuck on flee.
A lot of these stories don't just focus on Tony. Akande and Ayodele have an eye for detail and focus on side characters, making the world feel more fleshed out. There's one scene that comes to mind, with a couple SHIELD agents doing a cleanup job while talking about a missing wallet, showing the absurdity of being a normal person in this world. Quite a few of the stories have roots in Ayodele and Akande's real-life experiences that mirror Tony's health problems, relationship with his parents, and conflicts with friends.
I was born with an heart condition, and a hole in my heart. So I know what it's like when everybody's playing soccer, and then you join them, playing football and everything.
Football.
And everybody, yeah. And, everybody can go, 30 minutes, the full 90 minutes, and you've just gone 10 minutes and you're like, you want to play more, you want to have more fun, and you're like, I'm done. I would literally die if I don't squat. I can't just sit down. I have to squat on the floor. The doctor said it's an instinctive movement of trying to make all my limbs closer to my heart, so that the distance, the blood travel is shortened, and that kind of thing. So I understand how it's like, when you just, even to now, even I've had the surgery and everything, even to now, I think I remember, going on a farm, and trying to, work on the farm just like everybody else. And I looked up suddenly and I was like, oh, it got dark so fast. And they're like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, oh, like the sun set so quickly. Like when we were here, it was still bright and everything. It took a while before I realized that it was still bright outside. It was my eyes that had gone dark, because I was running out of oxygen basically from, walking and other stuff. So I had to sit down, try to catch my breath, breathe, And after like 10 minutes, I was like, oh my God, it's still afternoon. It looked like it was nighttime, So I understand that part, and when I try to tell Tony stories, I try to make his health, either self-inflicted or not, part of it. The fact that he doesn't have that, doesn't have good health.
Ayodele's voices are organic. Each one is distinct, balancing tragedy, heart, and humor without the comedic moments feeling forced. Rather than him being the comedic relief, we get to see a more fleshed out Tony. His intelligence, humor, anger, arrogance, how he deals with grief, or the way he makes hard choices that he thinks will save the world, sometimes sacrificing his friendships in the process. Akande puts so much care into crafting each page with a lot of attention given to everyone's facial expressions and body language, going from hard-hitting action sequences to quiet moments of existential angst with occasional moments of physical comedy. Tony ages in real time throughout the series. Instead of using the old reliable rogues gallery and side characters, Ayodele and Akande create some new characters, like Tammy, who creates constructs with her music. In issue 5, we get a polar bear security guard at the Cube prison for supervillains named George. Tony recruits an inmate at the Cube named Deola to help save some lives. She's a mechanic who can control metal objects. Issue 3, set during the 90s Chen era, also highlights Tony's friendship with James Rhodes. Without Rhodey, Tony would be completely lost. There are so many stories where Tony goes to dark places, and it's Rhodey who helps him out. I won't give away everything about this issue since it has a moment which is, for me, the highlight of the series. Even though it's a celebration of Tony's history, Ayodele and Akande don't always paint Tony in a positive light. Issue 4 takes place during the Civil War era and focuses on Tony's friendship with Doctor Strange. Despite being experts in completely different fields, Stark and Strange complement each other really well.
Who's the mouth?
Mr. Stark is brash, but I assure you, he can be trusted.
Wait, you seriously don't know who I am?
Both of them were arrogant and battled with their demons, only to change their ways and help others instead. Strange is one of the people throughout Iron Man's stories who can call Stark out and bring him back to reality. In this story, Strange confronts Stark for his behavior during Civil War, claiming how Tony became more comfortable fighting other heroes than fighting villains. This series does not let Tony forget about that event. The story isn't just stuck in New York. Akande and Ayodele go to Lagos and Sudan, also visiting locations from the comics like Atlantis. Using different real-world and comic settings prevents the world from getting stale.
Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, publicly or anything. I said most people, the reason why they don't get Iron Man comics is because they write Iron Man as a superhero. When you do, you don't get interesting stories. You should write Iron Man like a space adventurer. Those classic comics. Once you write him like that, you just unlock him. Iron Man is about going on adventures, about changing location, from locations on Earth to locations outside Earth to different realms. It's about the science of that travel and different things he discovers, different things he uses there, So if you write him as a superhero that just goes to fight crime, I think that's not Tony Stark. He's a scientist, he's an engineer, he's a space adventurer, And once you get that part, that he's more of a scientist than a superhero, it just works.
That's exactly how I see him too. I see him as, now, when you watch this, don't come for me. I mean disrespectfully. I don't see him as an Avenger. I see him as someone who prefers preventive measures than corrective measures. That is a scientist. He's an explorer. He goes out.
Exactly.
The futurist. He goes out to look for the thing that may happen. He's not the superhero who is trying to clean up a mess. He's trying to avoid, he's trying to stop the next death before, he's not trying to catch the criminal. He's trying to. Iron Man's dark side will be Minority Report.
Yeah.
Or telling who would do something. I think that would be his dark side. I think that's the kind of person he is. He's a futurist.
Issue 5, with Tony and Deola fighting off an alien invasion, feels like it could have been part of a longer arc. There were certain stories that were cut out of the series entirely.
There are 6 decades, of Tony, and we have 5 issues. So that means 1 decade had to be taken out. So, but the script for that decade, I don't know if Dotun remembers, is supposed to emphasize the fact that Tony, everybody else's protection is more important to Tony than Tony's own self-preservation. The fact that he experiments on himself constantly. So I was going to play with, with basically him and Reed Richards. Richard was supposed to be the co-star of that issue. They are both geniuses, they are both, adventurers, they're both scientists at heart, they're both futurists, but Tony constantly experiments with himself way more than Reed Richards will or is willing to.
One of Tony's key traits is his willingness to sacrifice everything he has to make sure others can live another day. That's very common in the superhero game, but Stark turns it up to 11. It's what makes Armor Wars one of my favorite Iron Man stories. Could Tony handle situations better than he does? Probably. Is Tony Stark the clean type? Not really. One of the most fascinating things about Tony's character, at least to me, is that he's messy. He's not relatable because he's a rich guy with fancy flying armor. He's this neurotic, self-sacrificing, self-destructive, but ultimately well-meaning character who wants to leave the world better than how he found it, in his excessively anxious way. Akande and Ayodele capture his flawed humanity really well. The team up with Deola is another example of this. Tony always had a knack for giving villains second chances. He's been doing this since his earliest stories, having faith that villains can be reformed, encouraging them to use their skills to help others. It was the same choice he made when he escaped the Grim Reaper all the way back in his first story. He got a second chance when Ho Yinsen saved his life, so he pays it forward by helping others. For someone who made a living contributing to wars and by extension took countless lives, Tony wants to make sure that doesn't happen again. When he was younger, he thought he was being helpful as a weapons maker taking over the family business. But he changes the direction of his life after reality hits him. It's why he goes to extremes trying to save the world. He's willing to take the bullet so someone else doesn't have to.
I remember someone said on Twitter that period that he had been reading comics for over 40 years. He was an elderly man. And he said this is the best Iron Man book he had read at the time. And we're like, what are you saying?
Yeah, I think they find it very, very refreshing or something like that, yeah.
Something crazy, like high praise. So to hear that from a veteran reader was just too much for us. We're so excited. Yeah. Called him, I sent him the link, or maybe you sent it to me, I can't remember. And then we got on the phone. Imagine that!
Iron Man fans are the best, yeah.
Iron Man fans are something else, man. They're too good. They're too good. Even when they are not eating, using the colloquial term, even when they're not getting what they want, the way they talk about not getting what they want is it's not as passionate, as crazy as, we see.
Yeah, they are like Tony Stark, they're empathetic too.
Yeah, they come with an understanding that is a bit scary and humbling. So why I say scary is because as a creator, you might be tempted to think that you don't need to bring your A game because of how understanding they are. So you're just, okay, you know what, this issue is just a filler issue. No. These guys want the best. I want the best for Iron Man. So bring in your A game.
I very quickly found out that a lot of professors were Iron Man fans. So we needed to get the science. So the fact that we got the science right in some places, they're like, okay, good, And when it came to the fantasy stuff, they're like, yeah, we can differentiate it, but, don't just say nonsense when you want to try to be sciencey,
It's very exciting to us because we also have science background and we have computer science. We both studied computer science. So to see someone who is like a professor say, oh, well done, you guys, you did well there, is always so exciting to us.
Fantastic Four and Iron Man were the first two comics I ever read. Sometimes I say they're to blame for this bad habit I have. Going through this series, it's a thoughtful character study made by people who truly care about Iron Man as a character. Welcoming for longtime readers, but also giving new readers a look into Tony Stark's heart and what makes him a hero. Thanks to Murewa Ayodele and Dotun Akande for being a part of this video. The video transcript and all my info can be found on my website. Thanks for watching. Chaos ensues.